I still remember the way she laughed, clear and sharp, echoing across the courtyard. It was the kind of laugh that made everyone look, the kind that made you small without a word. You, a millionaire? Dream on, Arman, she said, tilting her head, smiling like she knew something I didn't. I swallowed hard and looked down at my notebook. I'm serious, I muttered, more to myself than her. Alina raised an eyebrow. Serious? You barely have a laptop that works half the time. How do you even think you'll make that happen? I could feel my cheeks burning. I tried to keep my voice steady. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Rayanne nudged me under the table. Ignore her, man. She's just showing off again. I know, I said, though my voice didn't carry conviction. I just want her to see that I'm not kidding. Alina leaned back against the fountain and crossed her arms. Cute, really cute. You think a couple of dreams and late-night coding sessions will get you somewhere? She laughed again, and I could hear the pity in it. Newsflash, Arman. Some of us are born into this world with opportunities you'll never touch. I clenched my fists under the table, gripping my pen so tightly it hurt. Maybe I'll prove you wrong someday, I whispered. Though barely above the hum of the crowd. She glanced at me then, that smirk curling on her lips, like she could already see me failing. I'll be waiting, she said lightly, almost teasing. But her eyes had that glint, that little twist of arrogance that made me want to punch something. Rayanne put a hand on my shoulder. Don't let her get inside your head, man. She feeds on that. I know, I said again, trying to convince myself more than him. I looked at Alina and forced a smile. Thanks for the motivation, actually. She blinked, surprised, and then laughed. Motivation? You're desperate, Arman, admit it. I shook my head. No. I'm focused. Alina shrugged and turned away, chatting with her friends like nothing had happened. The sound of their laughter and their heels clicking across the courtyard made me feel invisible. I sank lower in my chair, staring at the words I'd scribbled in my notebook. One day, they'll see. Rayanne leaned closer. You really think you can do it? I have to, I said quietly. I can't. Not now, Arman. Just promise me you won't waste yourself. Don't let her or anyone make you small. I won't, I said. But inside, I felt small already. That day, her words dug in deeper than I wanted to admit. Every taunt, every smirk, every whispered mockery I had ignored until then came flooding back. I remember walking past the library later, seeing her in the courtyard again, laughing with her friends, tossing her hair like the world was hers. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her understand that I had a fire burning inside me. But I didn't. I walked on, letting her think I had nothing. And I promised myself, then and there, silently, without a single soul hearing it, I will prove her wrong. I will show her that dreams aren't for laughing at. I'll build everything she says I can't, and she'll see me. Not as the scholarship kid with a cracked laptop, but as someone she can't ignore. Rayan caught up with me, frowning. You okay? I nodded. Better than okay. I've got work to do. He raised his eyebrows, skeptical but trusting. All right, man, just don't burn out. I won't, but I will make it. The courtyard grew quieter as students drifted away. I walked past Alina's table one last time. Her laugh carried across the air again, softer this time, almost like a memory I wanted to keep burning in my mind. I didn't look back. I kept walking, notebook clutched tight, mind buzzing with ideas, heart pounding with a mix of shame and determination. That was the day. I understood something crucial. It wasn't just about proving her wrong. It was about proving myself right. And I would start tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. Until no one could laugh at me again. I promised myself that, silently. No one needed to hear it. Not yet. I was wiping tables at the coffee shop when my phone buzzed again. Another rejection email. My fingers hovered over the screen before I could bring myself to open it. Not again, I muttered. Rayan slid a cup of coffee toward me. Another one. Yeah, I laughed bitterly. They don't even give reasons. Just we appreciate your interest. Rayan shook his head. You're not giving up, right? I can't, I said, almost to myself. I don't know how long I can keep going. You'll find a way. You always do, he said. I nodded, but doubt clawed at my chest. Later that night, I was hunched over my laptop, code sprawling across the screen like a maze. My eyes burned. I rubbed them and scrolled through my messages again. One email popped up. Application unsuccessful. Great, I whispered, leaning back in my chair. My apartment smelled of coffee and paper. The kind of quiet that makes failure feel heavier. The next morning, I dragged myself to Dr. Kamal's office. He looked up from his papers. You look like hell, he said. Thanks, I muttered, sliding into the chair across from him. He leaned back. Tell me you're still working on that app. I am, I hesitated. But it feels pointless. Everyone keeps saying no. Dr. Kamal tapped his pen against the desk. Arman, dreams only matter if you survive long enough to see them through. I frowned. Survive? Yes, people like you quit too soon. You're smarter than you think, but smart isn't enough if you give up at the first obstacle. You have to last. I stared at him, trying to absorb the weight of his words. So, keep going. Even if it kills me, not literally, but if you stop, you'll never know how far you could go. I nodded slowly, the words settling in like heavy stones. A few days later, I ran into Alina in the courtyard. She was laughing, arm in arm with some guy in a crisp suit. I knew him, Adil, her boyfriend from the business club. My stomach twisted. Still chasing fantasies, Arman? She said, her voice dripping amusement. I looked down at my shoes. Yeah, I guess I am. You really think all that coding and late nights will get you anywhere? She asked, tilting her head, smiling like she already knew the answer. I shrugged. I don't know yet, but I'll keep trying. Adil snorted. Kid, just admit it. You'll never have what we have. I clenched my jaw. Maybe not, but I'll have something you can't buy. Alina's eyes flicked at him, like she was warning him to stay polite. Keep dreaming, Arman. It's adorable. I smiled faintly, but inside, my chest felt heavy. Later that night, I sat on my bed, staring at my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keys, but I didn't code. I just let the tears come. Why does it feel like they're all ahead of me? I whispered into the empty room. Why is it so easy for them, and so hard for me? I rubbed my eyes. No, stop it. You can't think like that. I opened my project folder, scrolling through the work I'd done. Every line of code, every failed attempt, every small progress marker flashed before me. And I remembered Dr. Kamal's words. Survive long enough to see them through. I clenched my fists. Okay, I'll survive. I'll get there. I didn't feel much better, but I felt something, a flicker, a tiny spark. I stood up and stretched, shaking off the exhaustion. Tomorrow, I would code again, and the next day, and the day after, because even if it felt hopeless, quitting wasn't an option. Not when they were laughing. Not when Alina's voice could still make me feel small. I whispered into the darkness, I'll get there. You'll see. And for the first time that week, I believed it. Even a little. I stared at the rejection email for the third time that morning. My startup pitch had failed. Investors laughed when I presented. I felt every chuckle in my chest, every smirk like a punch. Rayan called me. Hey man. You, okay? I laughed hollowly. Okay, do I look okay? You sound exhausted. I am. Everything's falling apart. My savings are gone, Mum's not doing well, and I don't know if I can do this anymore. You're not quitting, are you? I didn't answer. Later that day, I went home to see Mum sitting quietly on the couch, her hands trembling slightly as she held a cup of tea. Mum, I said softly. Arman, she said, smiling faintly, you've been working too hard. Eat something. I will, Mum. I need to finish a few things first. She looked at me with that tired worry in her eyes. Don't push yourself too far. You're only one person. I know, I whispered. I wanted to tell her that I felt small, that I was failing, that the world seemed too big and cruel. But I swallowed it down and just nodded. That night, I was back at my desk, laptop open, coding lines that felt meaningless. My eyes stung from exhaustion, and my fingers ached. The room was quiet except for the hum of my fan. I heard a knock. I looked up. It was Alina. What are you doing here? I asked, startled. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. I just walked by. Thought I'd check if the legend of Arman, the dreamer, still existed. Her smile was sharp. Mocking? I'm working, I said quietly. Not meeting her eyes. You should just find a normal job, she said. Her voice was casual, but it cut deeper than a blade. You're not meant for this. I froze. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream at her, to throw my laptop at the wall. Instead, I whispered, maybe not now, but someday, you'll remember this face. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise, and for a moment, I think she saw something she hadn't expected. Then she smirked. Bold words. Don't choke on them. I ignored her and turned back to my screen. My heart pounded, rage and despair twisting together. When she left, I slumped back in my chair, burying my face in my hands. Why does everything have to be so impossible? I muttered. Why does it feel like I'm alone in this? I thought about Rayan moving abroad, leaving me without my closest friend. I thought about Mum, fragile and relying on me, despite my failures. I thought about every rejection email, every investor's laugh, every moment that made me question why I even tried. And for a second, I almost let it go, almost let everything collapse. Then I remembered her words. Not Alina's this time, but Dr. Kamel's survived long enough to see it through. I sat up straighter. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My chest was tight, but my mind cleared. No, I whispered. I can't quit. Not now. I opened my code again, staring at the screen. Every error message, every failure, every late-night grind flashed before me. And slowly, a quiet resolve began to grow inside me. Stronger than the fear, stronger than the doubt. I whispered into the empty room, I'll keep going. I have to. I thought about Alina, and for some reason, the image of her smirking at me lit a fire in my chest. You'll remember this face, I murmured again, more firmly this time. You'll remember it when I'm done. Mum knocked lightly on my door. Arman, are you okay? Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Just finishing some work. She nodded and left, closing the door gently behind her. I sat back, staring at the screen. The lines of code blurred, but I didn't care. I didn't care about the exhaustion, the loneliness, or the weight pressing on my chest. I only cared about one thing, proving, first to myself, that I could survive this, that I could rise. Hours passed. The night grew deeper. My eyes stung, my fingers cramped, but I kept typing. I whispered to myself over and over, until the words became stronger than the doubt. I'll get there. I have to. I won't quit. By the time the first light of dawn seeped through the blinds, I hadn't stopped. I had no idea how I would make it, or if it would work, but for the first time in weeks, I felt ready, not victorious, not even close, but ready, and that, I realized quietly to myself, was enough for now. I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at my screen like it was a lifeline. Another failed pitch, another silent rejection. My chest ached, my hands shook, and I wondered if I'd ever get a break. Then my phone buzzed. An email from Professor Kamal. Arman, I sent your demo to someone who might be interested. Keep your hopes. I stared at it. Wait, what? Rayan's voice rang in my ear. You okay? I think so. Professor Kamal sent my demo to an investor, I said, disbelief tangled in my words. Are you serious? Yeah. I mean, I don't know yet. I'm just... My voice trailed off. Dude, go now. Don't overthink. I grabbed my only clean shirt and put it on, tugging at the collar nervously. My hands trembled. I kept repeating, don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. The investor's office was bigger than any classroom I'd ever been in. I stepped in and felt my stomach tighten. Arman, nice to meet you, the man said, shaking my hand firmly. Thank you for seeing me, I said, my voice barely steady. He gestured to a chair. Show me what you've got. I opened my laptop and began the demo. My fingers moved automatically. I explained the features, the purpose, the vision. My words felt clumsy at first, but the moment I saw his eyes light up, I knew I was connecting. This is impressive, he said. Have you considered funding? I swallowed. I haven't had much luck yet. Then let's change that. He smiled, and I felt a rush I hadn't felt in months. I asked, my voice cracking slightly. Yes, we want to see this. You have potential. I nodded, barely able to breathe. Thank you. I won't let you down. Good now. Work hard, Arman. Don't waste this. I left the office in a daze. Rayan, they liked it. They're funding it. You're kidding, he said, but his voice was shaking too. No, I'm not kidding. I have to work non-stop now. No excuses. And I did. I didn't sleep properly for weeks. My apartment became my office. Chairs doubled as beds. My meals were whatever I could grab between lines of code. Rayhan returned, ready to help with the business. Welcome back, I said, sliding him a laptop. I need you here. Glad to be here. Let's get this going, he replied. Slowly, DreamPath began to grow. Every download, every user, every little feedback felt like a tiny victory. I would sit back after coding for hours and watch the numbers rise, feeling pieces of myself return. Look at this, Ryan said one night, pointing at the analytics. Users are spreading it faster than we thought. I know, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. It's working. See, you didn't give up. You survived. I smiled faintly, exhausted, but alive. Yeah, survived. But I'm not done yet. I have to keep going. Weeks passed. DreamPath went viral among students. Messages poured in. Thank you for this app. It's changed how I plan my life. You made me believe in my dreams. I read each one aloud to Rayon. Can you believe this? He shook his head. I always knew you'd make it, Arman. You just had to survive long enough. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in. Every rejection, every failure, every moment of doubt. It had led to this, and it was just the beginning. One night, alone, I whispered to myself, this is it. This is the moment everything starts. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, burning hope. I looked at my hands, rough and tired, and said quietly, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll make it count. And for the first time in months, I believed it. The conference hall buzzed with chatter and the click of cameras. I adjusted my tie, feeling the weight of every eye on me as I stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, welcome to the DreamPath launch update. Applause erupted. I smiled politely, nodding, letting the moment sink in. I had worked 3 years for this. Every sleepless night, every rejection, every ounce of doubt had led here, and then I saw her, Alina. She was standing near the back, hair perfectly styled, a clipboard in her hands, pretending not to look too interested. But when our eyes met, I could see it. The freeze, the shock. I didn't falter. I smiled at the audience, gestured to the screen behind me, and continued. After the event, the crowd thinned. People asked questions, shook my hand, congratulated me. And then she walked up. Arman? Her voice had that familiar lilt, forced casualness creeping through it. Wow. You've changed. I looked at her carefully, noting the slightly frayed edges of her brand's PR materials, the tired look under her makeup. I had to, I said softly, letting the words land between us. She laughed nervously. Of course, you've done really well. Thank you, I said, shrugging lightly. It's been a lot of work, you know. Maybe we could catch up sometime, she asked, tilting her head, eyes trying to search for the boy she used to mock. I paused, studying her. Sure, I said, letting the curiosity in me, not affection, respond. She smiled, relief flashing across her face. Great, I'd love that. I nodded once and moved on, shaking hands with someone else. The conversation was over in a few seconds, but the impact lingered. Rayan, standing beside me, raised an eyebrow. You okay? I'm fine, I said, brushing past him. But inside, a small part of me relished the moment. Later, I found a quiet corner. I could still hear the conference hum, but I let my thoughts roam. 3 years ago, she would have been the one applauding someone like me, mocking behind her flawless smile. Now, the power had shifted. I could almost hear her words echoing. You, a millionaire. Dream on, Arman. And now, she had walked right up to me, forced smile in place, pretending to be casual. When the truth was clear, I chuckled softly to myself. I had to, I murmured, thinking of every late night, every rejection, every ounce of grit that had built this moment. She walked past me eventually, and I caught her looking back once. The subtle hesitation, the flicker of recognition, it was satisfying, more than I expected. Rayan nudged me. She's different now, huh? Different, I repeated, smiling faintly. No, she's the same, just smaller. Yes, the world that once favored her now doesn't. She's still charming, still smart, but she's not untouchable anymore. And I am. I glanced around at the cameras, the flashing lights, the people who now treated me with respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl who once mocked my dreams was now watching me command the room. Alina caught my eye again as she walked toward the exit. I didn't look away. I let the moment hang. Let her remember the boy she laughed at. Let her see the man he had become. Arman, she called softly, almost under her breath. Yes, I said, barely turning my head. She hesitated. I didn't expect this. You really did it. I told you, I had to, I said, calm and measured. She nodded, swallowing whatever she had planned to say next, and walked on. I let her go. There was no need to chase this. The victory wasn't in her approval. It was in the life I had built, the independence, the respect, the power. Rayan clapped me on the shoulder. Looks like your past caught up with you in a good way. I don't need her to catch up with me, I said. I just needed to know I'd reached this point on my own. We walked out together, the city lights reflecting off the glass of the conference center. I felt the weight of years of struggle lift slightly. But I also felt the surge of motivation. This was just the beginning. I whispered quietly to myself as we stepped into the night. Keep watching, Alina. This is only the start. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel uncertain. I felt in control. I felt alive. I waited at the restaurant, watching the candles flicker across the polished tables. When she walked in, I barely recognized her, Alina older, somehow smaller, a shadow of the girl who once laughed at me. Arman, she said softly. Forcing a smile, Alina, I replied, standing just long enough to nod before sitting again. We ordered wine. She sipped first, staring at the glass like it held answers. I guess. I owe you an explanation, she said finally. I raised an eyebrow. I'm listening, she laughed, but it was tired, hollow. It's embarrassing, really. A deal, he cheated on me. My career, it tanked. And my father's business, bankrupt. I don't even know where to start. I stayed quiet, letting her words hang in the air. Every confession chipped away at the arrogant wall she had once built between us. I should have. She paused, eyes flicking to mine. I should have believed in you. You were right, Arman. I didn't see it. I felt a strange ache in my chest. A small part of me wanted to reach out, to say something comforting. But another part, sharper, colder, wanted nothing more than to let her sit with the weight of her mistakes. I see, I said quietly. Swirling the wine in my glass, she stared at me, searching my expression. You're not mad. I chuckled softly. No, that would be easy. I don't think about that anymore. She looked down at her plate, silent for a moment. I thought life would always favor me, and you. You were just this poor scholarship student with crazy ideas. I laughed at you in front of everyone. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I nodded slowly. Life has a funny way of balancing things. Her eyes filled with regret. I wasted so much time, Arman. I could have learned from you. I could have. I raised a hand gently. Stop, it's done. The past doesn't change. You get to live with your choices, just like I lived with mine. She looked up, surprised at the calm in my voice. I'm sorry, truly. I never thought I'd have to say this. I took a slow sip of my wine. Apology accepted. But it's not about me anymore. It's about what you do with your life from here. Her shoulders slumped. I don't know where to start. Everything feels broken. I leaned back. Everyone gets what they give, Alina. Life just takes time to deliver it. She blinked at me. That's cold. Maybe, or maybe it's fair. I let the words settle in, soft but firm. You gave arrogance, selfishness, and doubt. Life returned lessons. She frowned. Lessons. Do they have to hurt this much? They do sometimes, I said, voice quiet, but they teach more than comfort ever could. We sat in silence for a while, the clinking of glasses and low murmurs of the restaurant around us. I watched her wrestle with her own regrets. I thought seeing you now would be different, she admitted. I thought maybe I'd still feel superior. But it's not like that. I just feel small, good, I said softly. Feel it, learn from it, move forward. Her eyes glistened. I never imagined I'd respect you like this. After everything, you earned it, I replied. Through your mistakes, not my triumphs. She took another sip of her wine. It's strange. I don't feel bitterness toward you. Just a dull ache. You really did it, Arman. You proved it all. I nodded. I did, and I'm not going to gloat. That's not the point. The point is, life taught both of us something. She swallowed, voice trembling slightly. I wish I had learned sooner. Most people do, I said quietly. Some just take longer. We talked for a few more minutes. Polite conversation punctuated with silence, each of us absorbing the weight of the past. I didn't remind her of her past arrogance. I didn't need to. Her own words carried the reminder. When the check came, I reached for it. I'll take care of this, I said. No, let me, she insisted. You can try, I said, with a small smile. But tonight isn't about who pays. It's about who learns. She laughed softly, a sound fragile but genuine. I think I understand now. I stood as she did. Alina, I hope you really do. She nodded, eyes shining with something like gratitude, maybe remorse. Thank you, Arman, for listening. For being you, I nodded, keeping my face neutral. Inside, I felt a strange mix. Pity for her, satisfaction for the justice life had served, and relief that I could walk away without bitterness. We stepped into the night together, neither rushing, both aware of the unspoken truths between us. I didn't feel triumph in the way I once imagined. I felt balance. Before she left, I said softly, remember, Alina. Everyone gets what they give. Life just takes time to deliver it. She nodded again, lips pressed in a small line. I'll remember, and then she was gone, the door closing behind her. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. The ache in my chest softened. I felt lighter. I had faced the past, let it speak, and walked away. I whispered to myself, barely audible, poetic justice, served quietly. And for the first time that evening, I smiled without restraint. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, looking up at the mansion on the hill. The sunlight bounced off the glass windows, and the gardens stretched perfectly into the distance. Years of work, years of sacrifice, DreamPath was now a global brand. I shook my head. All this pit, and yet it feels empty sometimes. I muttered to myself, Ryan, leaning against the passenger seat, chuckled softly. You've got the mansion, the company, the fame, and you're still brooding. I trailed off, staring at the city below. I think about Mum. She never got to see any of this. She never got to sit here, watch it, smile at it. Rayhan didn't reply, just let me sit in the quiet. I drove up the winding road to the house, memories of sleepless nights pressing against me. I remembered crying alone, wondering if I'd ever reach this point, if it was even possible. People see the mansion, the cars, the success, I said finally. They don't see the pain behind it. The nights I worked while the world slept, the times I almost gave up. You made it, Arman, Rayon said. That's what matters. I smiled faintly, eyes distant. Yes, but victory doesn't always feel sweet. Sometimes it's just bittersweet. I started the car and headed down the main street toward the city. The late afternoon sunlight glinted off the glass towers, and I caught a glimpse of something familiar across the road. Alina. She was standing outside a small cafe, shoulders hunched, hands pressed against her face. I slowed down, disbelief catching me. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Rayan, look, I said quietly. It's her. He leaned forward. Alina. I nodded, my chest tightening. She's crying. I drove past slowly, memories flooding back, the laughter, the mocking, the nights I spent proving her wrong. And now, this. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Shock, superiority, but also a pang of something softer, not pity, not exactly, but recognition of the lessons she'd learned the hard way. I parked a little ahead and stopped the engine. Should I? Rayon asked. I shook my head. No, let her have this moment. She needs it more than anything I can say. I watched as she dabbed at her eyes, staring down at the pavement. Part of me wanted to roll down the window, say something sharp, remind her of every word she ever mocked me with. Instead, I stayed silent. Arman, are you okay? Rayan asked, nudging me. I am, I said. Better than okay. I just remember what it felt like to be me back then. That's all. I thought of the nights at my desk, fingers cramping over my laptop, every rejection email like a punch in the chest. The nights I cried quietly, wondering if I'd ever rise. And now, I had. Yet, seeing her like this, standing small in front of the cafe, it hit me how far I'd come. How the tables had turned. She looks lost, Rayon said quietly. Yes, I whispered. But not lost forever. Just. Finally realizing, I turned the key in the ignition and started the car again. Let her have this. Let her see me. But let it stay a silent lesson. Rayan nodded. I get it, poetic justice. I smiled faintly, thinking of everything that had led to this moment. Not just the victory, not just the mansion or the brand, but the quiet strength I'd built in the years no one saw. She remembered this, I said. Every choice, every mistake, every mocking word. And she remembered me, too. We drove on in silence. I looked at the city sprawling beneath us, the sun dipping lower in the sky. Success was strange, beautiful, lonely, and necessary. I thought of Mom again. I imagined her smiling from somewhere, proud. That thought alone made the mansion, the cars, the late nights feel worth it. You're quiet, Rayan said. Just thinking, I replied. About how far we've come, about who I was, and who I am now. And Alina, he said softly. Yes, I said. She's part of this story too. Part of the lesson. But she won't define me. Not anymore. We parked near the mansion, the driveway shining under the evening sky. I looked at the lights in the house, at the gardens stretching into the distance, and whispered to myself, I've made it. And I know what it cost me, but I'd do it all again. And for the first time that evening, the weight on my chest lifted. I felt the full mix of triumph and reflection, sweet, bitter, necessary. Let's go inside. I said to Rayan, tomorrow, the work continues. But tonight, I just breathe. And as we walked up the steps, I couldn't help but glance down the street one last time. Alina was still there, small and quiet, and I felt victorious. Not cruelly, not with malice, but with the steady, quiet satisfaction of someone who had truly survived. I was driving home, the city lights stretching into a river of gold and white. The mansion behind me felt like a dream I'd earned with blood, sweat, and tears. I didn't expect anything else to surprise me tonight. And then I saw her, Alina. She was standing on the sidewalk, outside a tiny cafe, hunched slightly. Her hands trembled as she wiped at her face. Tears streaked her cheeks, and for a moment, I slowed the car without thinking. Rayan glanced over. "You okay?" "Yeah," I muttered, eyes fixed on her. "Just noticing something." She looked up and caught sight of the car. Her eyes widened, and for an instant, her forced smile faltered. She wiped her tears again, trying to compose herself. "Come on," she whispered, almost to herself. I kept driving slowly, letting the moment stretch. Part of me wanted to stop, get out, offer help. A small, foolish part that still remembered who she had been, but I didn't. I let her see me, really see me. The man who had survived rejection, humiliation, and doubt. The man who had built everything from nothing. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You're really here," she said softly. "Yes," I replied under my breath, mostly to myself. For a second, our eyes met fully. I saw the brokenness. Behind her makeup, behind the years she had spent pretending to be untouchable. That sharp arrogance, that mocking grin, it was gone. You've really made it," she said, voice trembling. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence carried everything. The victories, the nights of struggle. The years of proving myself when no one else would believe. Rayan cleared his throat quietly. "Different, huh?" "Yeah," I said, gripping the wheel a little tighter. "But it's the lesson, not the person. That's what matters." Alina took a hesitant step forward, like she wanted to say more. I should have listened. I shook my head gently, barely perceptible. No words needed. The truth had already spoken itself in the years of my work, in the life I'd built. In the calm control I had over everything she had once dismissed. She swallowed and tried to smile again. The effort visible, painful. "I hope you're happy." I nodded slightly. "I am," I said softly. "And I hope you find your own way to." The words hung between us like a fragile truce. She blinked, glanced down at her hands, and for a moment, I wondered if she realized just how much her past actions had shaped this encounter. You're still kind," she said, voice barely audible. "I learned to be," I replied. "Kind, but firm. Forgiving, but not blind." She nodded slowly. "Understand." The city lights reflected off the windshield, blurring like memories I no longer needed to hold. The streets passed under the tires, fast now. The moments with her slipping into the past, I whispered quietly to myself. A mantra I'd carried for years. "You mocked my dreams once. Now, mine are the reason you remember yours." Her eyes lingered on me for one last second, that silent acknowledgement passing between us, a moment of recognition, of poetic justice, of truth. Then she turned back toward the cafe. Head bowed slightly, shoulders hunched again. The city swallowed her up, small and quiet. Finally facing her own journey, I pressed the accelerator, feeling the hum of the engine beneath me, the power beneath my hands. Not power over her, not revenge in the petty sense, but the power of survival, of growth, of finally claiming everything I had worked for. "Rayan," I said, voice steady, "it's done. She'll remember, but I don't have to carry her anymore. Not mine, not hers. Just the life I've built." He nodded. "Yeah, you earned it." I drove on, the city lights blurring past like golden streaks of memory. The pain, the laughter, the mockery, all of it remained, but it was mine to use, not mine to carry anymore. "Sometimes," I whispered. I could almost hear the echo of her old laugh. Sharp and arrogant, like it belonged to someone else. Someone who had no idea how far I would go. I smiled faintly, chest lighter than it had been in years. The road stretched on, empty now, smooth under the tires. And in that moment, I felt complete. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just at peace. The city lights blurred further, and I whispered one last time, barely audible. "You mocked my dreams. Now, they drive me forward, and you'll always remember them." I drove away, the hum of the engine, and the pulse of the city carrying me toward the life I had fought so hard to claim. I stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly beneath me. The air was cool, soft, and still, and for the first time in years I felt it. Peace. Funny, I said softly to myself, leaning on the railing. I thought all this, all the success, all the revenge, it would feel sweeter. Rayanne, sitting on the chair beside me, chuckled. And does it? I shook my head. No, not really. It's not about revenge. Not anymore. It was never about proving Alina wrong, or showing anyone else I could make it. He raised an eyebrow. Then what was it about? Survival, I said, voice low. Growth. Becoming someone I can respect when I look in the mirror. You've done that, Rayanne said quietly. You've built something incredible, Arman. Don't sell yourself short. I smiled faintly, eyes scanning the skyline. I know, and yet, I think the hardest part wasn't building the company. It was building me. Every rejection, every failure. It all made me stronger. Rayanne nodded. Even the nights you cried. Especially those nights, I said, letting a small laugh escape. I remember staring at my laptop, fingers cramped, eyes burning, wondering if I'd ever make it, wondering if I was dreaming too big. You weren't, he said firmly. You just didn't know how close you already were. I sighed, feeling the weight of all the years lift slightly. I wish Mum could see this, I whispered. She'd have understood why I pushed so hard, why I never gave up. Some of us understand now, Rayanne said, smiling. I looked at him, then at the city below, the lights reflecting in my eyes. You know, for years, I thought my victories were about showing people, about making them remember me. About poetic justice. Rayanne tilted his head. And now, I paused, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Now, it's about me, about living a life I'm proud of, about waking up without the weight of bitterness, about finding peace in the fact that I survived everything. I pulled out a small notebook from my pocket, the one I kept for thoughts, notes, dreams. I opened it to a blank page and wrote slowly, keep believing. Even if they laugh, keep building. Rayanne leaned over. That's for who? For me, I said, tapping the page. And for the boy I used to be. The one who stayed up late, who cried alone, who dreamed bigger than the world thought he should. He smiled. He'd be proud of the man you became. I hope so, I said softly. Because the truth is, it wasn't about winning over anyone else. Not Alina, not anyone who doubted me. My peace. That's the real victory. You've earned it, Rayanne said. I nodded, closing the notebook. The wind brushed against my face, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Every sleepless night, every harsh word, every setback, had led me here. You think she ever realize it? Rayanne asked. I shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't need her recognition. I don't need anyone's. Rayanne nodded, leaning back. You really have changed, you know? From the boy in college who got laughed at. I know, I interrupted gently, smiling, and I'd never trade those nights for anything. They built me. They taught me patience, grit, and the meaning of resilience. I looked at the skyline, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The city seemed softer tonight, quieter, like it understood the story behind the lights. I want you to remember this, Arman, I whispered to myself. This moment. This feeling. Because this is what it's worth fighting for. Not revenge. Not recognition, peace. Rayanne leaned forward. So, what now? Now, I said, letting a small, genuine smile spread across my face. I live. I keep building. I keep dreaming, and I don't let the past weigh me down. We sat there in silence for a while, the city humming below, the night wrapping around us like a blanket. I felt a clarity I hadn't known in years. You healed, Rayanne said quietly. I did, I said, voice calm. And it feels better than I imagined. I glanced at the notebook, then at the skyline, the lights flickering like distant stars. I had survived the laughter, the mockery, the heartbreak, and the doubt. I had built a life I could respect, and for the first time in years, I smiled, not because I won, not because someone else suffered, but because I had healed. Here's to peace, I whispered softly, raising my glass of water. The real victory. Ryan clinked his glass with mine. To peace. I let the cool night air wash over me, the city lights stretching endlessly. Everything felt in its place, balanced, complete. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I finally understood. The journey had been worth it. Not for revenge, not for recognition, but for the simple, powerful truth that I had survived and I had become whole.